Hey folks, Will here again with Happily Ever Outdoors. In this Saturday sit down, we're going to be discussing camp knives. And the question of the day is, how big is big enough? So keep watching. Alright guys, so I'm well aware of the fact that I am really swimming out in shark-infested waters by bringing up this topic. Depending on which particular group you associate with, we've created all these little boxes that we think everyone should conform to. For the sake of this video, when I say camp knife, what I mean is what kind of knife is big enough to really be your general purpose knife while you're out in the woods. In just a minute, we'll kind of dive into the specifics and I'll share some of my kind of thought process when I'm selecting a knife. But before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and roll some footage that I recorded for you guys out in the woods earlier today.
Alright guys, so for the sake of this video, we're pretty much going to divide knives into three categories. We're going to look at your small companion type knives, as well as kind of your mid-size, bushcraft survival category, up to your large chopping knives. All of these knives are fixed blades, not that folding knives don't have their place outdoors, but for this particular discussion, we're sticking to fixed blade knives. So starting in the small knife category, we'll take a look. This is a knife I've done a review on. It's one of the Schrades that I'm actually a really big fan of. It's a neck knife, but it's definitely large as far as neck knives go. But this is full tang construction, G10 handle scales, got a nice sharp blade, so it's small without being too small. This is a very capable knife. It's a good example of, in my opinion, what a small knife should be. So certainly one that I feel comfortable recommending. If you've never heard of it, it might be one that you want to check out. Next up, we have one of my current personal favorite knives. This is the Mora Cans Bowl. So this is a little bit larger, but still definitely lightweight, compact. This would be a really good knife for most of your bushcraft tasks, camping, hiking, anything you're going to need it for. This knife's going to handle it. Next up, we have what I would consider to be kind of your mid-range category. This is where most of your bushcraft knives, your little bit larger bushcraft knives, would fall into, as well as kind of your tactical and survival type knives like what you see here. So this is the Gerber Strong Arm in BDZ1 steel. This is the limited edition version. But this is a knife that's, relatively inexpensive for as good of quality as it is. One of my personal favorites. It's still fairly lightweight, but it's definitely, you can see we're moving into knives that are a little more substantial, a little more girth to them. And then we also have the Ka-Bar Jaraz Turok. So one step up from that, you can see this is a little more of an aggressive design. This is definitely kind of a combat utility knife, but it's also really capable out in the woods. I've had this for a while now, and it's one of my personal favorites. So moving up to the large knife category, another Ka-Bar right here, also a Jesse Jaraz designed knife, but I love the Turok so much that I had to check out the Choppa. So this is a really good, if you're looking for a large survival knife. I've really come to like this thing. It's lightweight for as big as it is. It can do a lot of tasks like a smaller knife can do, but it also can handle a little bit of the heavier stuff too. I'd recommend, if you go with a larger knife like this, go with something that's decent quality. If you get a cheap knife this size, it's going to snap on you. It's not going to have good enough steel to take the kind of work you're going to put it through. Moving on to something a little more exotic. This is a Thai ENEP. Now this thing is definitely a knife design that's been around for a very long time. You see this a lot in jungle type countries. A lot of tribal cultures used knives like this. You might have thought kukri when you first saw this, but this is a different design, a little bit similar, but if you look at the two side by side, you can see some key differences. But this is really a tried and true design that's been around for a very long time. Substantially heavier than any of the ones we previously looked at, or the Choppa. It's definitely got a lot more weight to it.
Alright folks, so obviously this is just a really small snapshot of everything that's out there as far as outdoor knives are concerned, but this should be enough for us to really kind of get a discussion going. Now to start off, I'm going to give you probably the vaguest answer possible, but I also think it's the most accurate. And that's that it really all depends. And right here is really where most of the arguments start, because everybody's got their idea of what an outdoors knife should be. And generally speaking, that's kind of formulated based upon what it is that they do out in the woods. And a lot of it is really influenced by the culture of, which particular group they tend to associate with, whether that's campers, hikers, backpackers, bushcrafters, survivalists. Now, in my opinion, there's really no one hard and fast right answer when it comes to knives. Now, I personally believe that in order to determine what is the best primary or sole knife that you're going to take with you out in the woods, there's a couple of questions you need to ask yourself, and that's really going to determine what kind of knife you need to bring. Now, question number one, and I think when people have these kind of debates, a lot of times they fail to really even think about this, is where will you be taking it? Many times your destination is really going to determine what kind of knife you need, or even what kind of knife it's possible for you to carry, whether that's the constraints of a long backpacking trip where you've got to keep weight to a very minimum, or it could be legal limitations. You might not be allowed to carry a knife of a certain size or a certain style, depending on the area you're headed to. For example, a large chopping knife like this Thai E-nip or this K-bar I have here might be really great if you're planning on doing a lot of bushcrafty kind of stuff where you're going to be stationary in one place for an extended period of time, or maybe you're going car camping where you can drive up to the site that you're going to be at. But if you're taking a long backpacking trip, this probably is not going to be practical. And again, depending on the area you're going through, you might get into legal trouble carrying a knife this size. If that were the case, you'd probably be more likely to consider a smaller companion knife, like this heavy-duty Schrade neck knife I have here, or maybe a good Mora, or even into kind of the mid-size category. So that's definitely one of the very first things to consider. Where am I going to be taking it? Or maybe more specifically, how far might I have to carry it? So oftentimes, this is where you start to see the division right away between different folks in the outdoors community, because somebody who's going ultralight is automatically going to dismiss even carrying a knife like this, whereas a bushcrafter would have no problem carrying a heavy blade. So I think we can already kind of see where the differences of opinion are starting to come in. So how about you guys? Does the place where you're going, or perhaps how far you have to hike to get there, determine what kind of knife you're going to bring? So question number 2, and I think this is a really important question to ask: what do you need it to do? Are you maybe just needing a small knife to kind of open some ready-to-eat meals and maybe cut some cordage and do a little bit of whittling while you're bored around the campsite? Or maybe you're looking for something that's a little bit bigger in case maybe you were in an emergency situation and you got lost. You want something that's going to be heavier duty, that's going to be able to handle a little bit heavier tasks. Or perhaps you're out trying to build a bushcraft campsite and you need something that you can chop limbs with, that you can do all kinds of heavier work. And this is where I think a lot of folks just absolutely start to lose their minds when we try to talk about knives online. The reality is that just like any other tool, different knives of different sizes and weights and designs and grinds and all those different factors are designed for different purposes. So while every knife you see here will certainly accomplish the primary task of a knife, which is to cut things, each one is designed specifically to do certain tasks very well. And that's where, honestly, if you're in a situation where weight isn't a huge concern, you might want to consider carrying 2 knives. Because while a small or medium-sized knife might not be able to do all of the heavy tasks that a larger knife will, it's going to be much safer to use when you're trying to accomplish small tasks that require a little bit more dexterity, a little bit more control. And that's just because a slip with a knife, especially a very large knife, can cause very serious injury. And that's definitely something you don't want to have when you're out in the woods. So how about you guys? When you're choosing your primary or maybe even your sole knife that you're going to take out in the woods, what are your big considerations? What exactly are you expecting that knife to be able to do for you? And question number 3 is going to be, what are you most comfortable with? Again, this is where a lot of times, especially if you're involved in social media, that we put ourselves in these little boxes, and the particular community that we're in tries to kind of force ideas on us of this is the kind of knife you should carry, even this is the specific brand, and this is the specific model. Me personally, I try not to get caught up in any of that. I think it's really important that you have a knife that you're familiar with and that you're really comfortable with, because number one, it's going to help you to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish while you're out in the woods, and number two, it's going to be much, much safer. Some of you might have already noticed from a lot of the videos I do that I'm left-handed. Now imagine if I were to force myself to use a knife right-handed. Now I can use a knife right-handed. I've tried to kind of train myself to be able to use it, so in case something ever happened, I injured my hand. But imagine if I just felt, so pressured because the majority of the people in the world are right-handed. All the other YouTubers that I see doing knife review videos, they're all right-handed. So I don't want my videos to look weird and be the one guy who's doing it left-handed. So now I'm gonna start doing everything right-handed just to make everybody else happy. Now if I were to do that just because that's what I thought I needed to do to fit in or whatever else, I've just put myself at risk, because number one, it's gonna be a lot harder for me to do the things I need to do. Imagine trying to make kindling and do fine tasks with the wrong hand. And not to mention, it's a lot easier that you could make a mistake and slip and potentially injure yourself. So in the same way, when you're selecting a good camp knife, you need to choose what you're most comfortable with. Just like every person is different, right? We have different fingerprints. Every knife is different. You've got different handle sizes, different handle shapes, and one knife that might be great for one person might be a terrible fit for you. So I would say try different things, kind of figure out what works best for you and stick to it. Now when we're talking about larger knives like these, or maybe like a kukri or a large Bowie knife, that's certainly not for everybody. And arguably, there's not a ton of situations where you absolutely need it. But I like them, and sometimes they're fun to work with, and you can get a lot of work done. But maybe you're nervous around knives, or you're not really used to working with larger knives. This is probably not the route you're going to want to go, because if you're clumsy with these things, again, there's a good chance that you could injure yourself. So if I were looking to give recommendations on a knife to somebody who was a beginner, or maybe I was picking out a knife for one of my kids, this certainly would not be the route I would go. This would be the smarter way to get started. So the big takeaway that I'm trying to drive home for you guys here is that you need to find something that you are comfortable with. I'm not saying to completely dismiss the ideas of survival experts or people within the bushcraft community or the recommendations of your friends and family. However, at the end of the day, this is the piece of steel that you're going to have to carry with you. This is the thing that you're going to be using while you're out in the woods, and you want to be able to operate safely and comfortably and enjoy yourself. So again, when we're trying to make a decision about how big is big enough when it comes to camp knives, number one, we need to ask ourselves, where are we going to be taking it? Number two, what exactly do we need it to do? And number three, what are you comfortable with? So how about you guys? Does the particular type of trip that you're taking determine how big of a knife you feel is necessary to carry? Or maybe it's the specific tasks that you like to do while you're at the campsite. And sometimes it might just come down to what you're most comfortable with. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please drop those in the comments below. Alright guys, well I hope this video was helpful to you. I'm not trying to solve all the world's problems here, and I'm certainly not trying to end the debate on how big is big enough when it comes to camp knives. Again, the real purpose of these Saturday sit-down videos is just kind of to present some ideas to you guys so that we can discuss it. I want to interact with you guys. I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm certain that our subscribers would love to hear what you have to say too. I know we've got a lot of shared knowledge and experience in this group, people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and by sharing, we can all grow together. Alright guys, so before we head out, I certainly don't want to forget to share with you this week's featured small outdoor content creator. Now lately, I've had the opportunity to connect with a lot of small outdoor content creators, and I actually stumbled across Matt's YouTube channel. Honestly, I was really surprised that he doesn't have a bigger following than he does, because his adventure videos are so well put together. He does a great job on his footage. He even does a lot of really cool aerial footage with drones. He gives you a lot of really great information if this was a destination you were actually planning on going to. And his overall composition is just very, very nice. It's really enjoyable to watch. As somebody who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I can really appreciate the beauty of that part of the country, and I love the way that he highlights it and shares it for the world to see. According to Matt, that's really his motivation for doing the YouTube channel. It's just to share the natural beauty of the state of Oregon. It's a place that he's been exploring his entire life, and that definitely shows in the volume and the quality of his content. Matt also describes himself as a quiet person, so this is one way he really enjoys expressing himself. So Matt, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to feature you here on our Saturday Sit Down. Of course, we'll go ahead and throw the link to his YouTube channel on this video as well as in the description below, along with any pertinent social media information, so you guys can check it out for yourself. If you've enjoyed this content, we'd certainly appreciate it if you gave us a thumbs up, and while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already so that you can keep seeing more videos like this. Also, we're working really hard right now to put up bigger and better content for you guys on a regular basis. So if you'd like YouTube to notify you whenever a new video is posted, go ahead and click that little bell icon. Thank you guys for taking the time to participate in this Saturday Sit Down. And until next time, stay happy, stay outdoors.